What's going on, YouTube? First of all, I got some business. Check out my community tab. Got a new P.O.Box. I was having mail issues. If you sent me something and I didn't get back to you, I do apologize. I do have some new stuff on the way. We're going to have fun with it. It's going to be probably mid-December. It is on pre-order. Stick around. I'm looking forward to that one. Poor Man's Gold. Did a Killer GAW video. Sweet giveaways. Very generous guy. Go check him out. Link will be in the description of this video, as will my P.O. Box. So if you sent me something and I haven't responded, it means I didn't receive it. I apologize. Please send to the P.O. Box. Question for you. And hold on to this question in your mind until the end and your answer to this question, because it's very pertinent to today's topic and today's times. And that is, if I offered you an asset or a stock, whatever, and it almost always depreciates in value, and over time it always depreciates in value, would you want to buy it? And I'm sure your answer is no. And we'll get back to that at the end of the video. The Hunt Brothers. I did a community tab. Most of you were somewhat familiar. Some were very familiar. A fair amount were not familiar at all, so let's talk about that. Back in 1973, the Hunt Brothers started acquiring a lot of physical silver. They saw what was happening in the economy with money printing. Sounds familiar. Currency printing, I should say. Inflation, stagflation. I believe all of you know what inflation is. It takes more of these to buy things, right? Well, stagflation is when that is occurring, inflationary periods, as well as high unemployment, low economic market growth. I'd say we're there. A lot of folks aren't working. So back in 73, again, I believe it was, the Hunt Brothers decided to protect themselves with physical silver, as physical gold was illegal to own at that point in time in the United States, which is ridiculous. And I don't believe that will ever happen again. Some people do. I disagree. So they set out to buy as much physical silver as they could to protect themselves. A lot of people said they cornered the market. That's not the case if you know your history. There's a lot of great videos out there about them, I'm sure, on YouTube. I encourage you, if you want a more in-depth explanation and history on them, it's very interesting. I encourage you to check those out. I am not a financial advisor. This is what I'm doing. This is my opinion only. My thoughts. Keep that in mind. Now, while they were acquiring as much as they could with a pretty hefty inheritance they got to the tune of about $5 billion, I believe it was, they found themselves in a situation where the physical market just didn't have much to offer anymore, as they'd acquired most of it. So they moved on to the silver futures market and paper, which, what paper has to do with physicals, a whole other story. I think is completely ridiculous. And after that, they wanted more, so they started buying on margin, also known as credit, from the brokerage house. Well, supply and demand took over, and there was not much supply and quite a bit of demand, so the government got involved, as it always does, and changed the rules on the margins. So basically what ended up happening is they forced the Hunt Brothers to come up with more capital to cover the margin calls, and they had to sell a lot of silver to make that happen, thereby putting more silver into the market. A lot of that was paper silver, again, which to me is completely ridiculous. Doesn't exist. It's fake. This is real. And that lowered the price. So I think the lesson that we can take away from that is hold physical silver. It is much harder to manipulate a purely physical market, because, quite simply put, if the demand is there and the supply is not, the paper doesn't matter, okay? Because this is what is wanted. If the paper markets weren't so big, we would all be a whole lot better off. And I sincerely believe that if the Hunt Brothers would have stuck to physical and maybe a little bit of paper, if that's what they wanted to do, but they used capital to purchase everything up front, I think they would have been in a whole lot better situation. Investing on credit doesn't usually work out, if at all. It's just not something I recommend. Again, not a financial advisor. You make your own choices. Physical would have won the game. Now, back to what I asked you in the beginning. Would you buy a depreciating asset? Well, that's what this is. You can look anywhere since the creation of the Fed in 1913, Federal Reserve, which makes these things, creates those numbers on the screen, and you'll find anywhere from 92 to 98% of the purchasing power has been lost. Okay, anywhere you look, you will find those numbers. 92 to 98% of the purchasing power of the dollar has been lost in that time, meaning it takes a whole lot more of these to buy what they bought before. I would argue maybe it's even more, especially with the way things are going. So, do I keep these in my safe? Yeah, a little bit. Do I keep these in a bank that pays me little to zero interest, just enough to cover my bills and a few extra bucks? Do I keep these in a bank that pays me 3.5%? A little bit. Why? Because it's a depreciating asset. If it's not appreciating, it's depreciating. So I want to make these, make as much more of these as possible, so I can buy more of this and more gold. If this is kept under a mattress, which I don't advise, or in a safe in large quantities, or banks that don't pay you anything, that's what it's doing. Okay, you're buying that stock or that asset every day and holding it, knowing that it's going down in value. That's what this does. That's just my take, my experience, what I've learned. Like I said, I like to stay out of the paper markets. I do have some mining stocks that are actually doing pretty well, that I think are going to continue to do well, at least for some time. I don't really believe in silver and gold ETFs. I don't believe in paper, metal. I mean, I love that sound. Paper metal doesn't make that sound because paper metal's not metal. Paper metal doesn't even make sense, that term. So for me, it's all about keep it physical. The whole silver in your stocking movement is starting to kind of catch on. I think if everyone buys a couple ounces that doesn't have any, and I think if those of us that do have them buy a few extra, and maybe buy a few extra for the kids, the grandkids, the friends, the neighbors, whatever, the co-workers, I think we can actually get somewhere with this. I really do. And I think enough people are starting to stack silver and gold that we can make some real headway. I would have liked to have made this a longer video, but for some reason my camera is irritable. If I go over 10 minutes, it cuts off anything after that, and I don't like that. So, Constitutional Stacker, coming at you. Like, subscribe, show some love, share some thoughts, share some ideas. Check out the community tab with the new PO.Box. Also will be in the video description, as well as Poor Man's Gold. Super cool guy, really knowledgeable, good content. Constitutional coming at you. Thanks for watching. Keep stacking.